They all traumatised after that. Oh, they traumatised. This is a story about a fella who lived in Scotland in kind of early 1990s. And his name was Tarbuck Campbell, something like Tarbuck Campbell, and he was a writer. He was quite a famous writer at the time in Scotland. He wrote everything. He wrote poems, he wrote plays, he wrote everything you can imagine. And the thing was, he was very, very famous, very, very rich. That hadn't always been the way. When he started writing, he was very poor, it was a very hard job, and he kept getting rejections and rejections and rejections. And then one day, one of his poems was in a little magazine, and it was read by a woman called Mrs. Johnson. And Mrs. Johnson was very, very rich, and she was very, very powerful. She was married to Mr. Johnson. And the thing with the rich and the powerful is sometimes you take notions, and he took a notion in to look after Tarbuck Campbell. And he started giving them advice on who to contact, and who to talk to, and how to network. And soon enough, Tarbuck Campbell, his work started to get published, and books get published, and he began to win awards and make money, and he became very, very powerful and very influential himself. And when he wasn't writing, what he used to do is he'd write book reviews. He'd write book reviews for a very influential Scottish paper. They'd only write them maybe once a year, maybe twice a year. The reviews were held in very, very high esteem, because they were written by Tarbuck Campbell. And if you wrote a review, if a big man wrote a little collection of poetry, and Tarbuck liked it and wrote a good review, sure, the next thing, because Tarbuck was held in such esteem, that big man would be famous. He'd be getting book deals, and he'd be hit with stuff in Hollywood, he'd be making movies about him, all sorts. On the other hand, if you were rich and famous and powerful yourself, but Tarbuck Campbell wrote a review and said your work was rubbish, well, the shame that would be on you would be as if you vanished from the face of the earth, and nobody would ever see you again. And nobody would review you again, and nobody would publish you again. And that was the power of Tarbuck Campbell, and he loved that power. And he just didn't love the power, he loved the fact that every time he wrote a review, the Johnsons would celebrate it by having a feast to celebrate how brilliant Tarbuck Campbell was. And they had a mansion there in Edinburgh near the Botanic Gardens, and they'd invite the great and the good of Scotland to the mansion. There'd be architects and entrepreneurs and anarchists and heathens and worshippers of all sorts, and everybody would be there. And they'd all come to see Tarbuck Campbell after his review, and they'd all celebrate how wonderful he was. Well, Tarbuck was. And there was one particular person who came to all these suppers. It was a woman called Patricia Crooks. And Patricia Crooks was a poet. And Tarbuck Campbell had a little something for her. She was tall and willowy and kind of with long hair. And she had a kind of very cutting wit and a sharp intellect. This was what impressed Tarbuck Campbell. His focus was on more kind of physical, localised areas. And after the first time he met her, I was taken with part of her. Whole new series of poems on the topic of apples. Wonderful apples, well-shaped apples, small apples to be bitten into, streets and streets of this stuff. And every time he met Patricia Crooks, he tried to charm her, a poem about apples. And she wasn't impressed. And at the suppers, sometimes he'd be sober and he'd be subtle, and she'd just poo him. And other times he'd be glittered, and he'd be drunk, and he'd be bold, and he'd try and charm her, and she'd still poo him. And over the years, Tarbuck Campbell started to get scum with this. This was Tarbuck Campbell. How dare this woman ignore him and ignore his wonderful poems about apples? And he was very annoyed. And then, one day, Patricia Crooks brought out a new collection of poems. And of course, books were sent out to the magazines to be reviewed. Tarbuck got a copy and he read it. He read it from the first page to the last page. And when he opened it up, he read it all the way through because it was the most stunning, wonderful, powerful piece of writing he'd ever seen. And when he finished reading it, he thought, I know what I'm going to do. And he immediately phoned up his newspaper and he wrote a review and he savaged it. He said it was the worst thing ever, it was tripe and insult to Scotland, and he destroyed the character part of Patricia Crooks. Now, his review was published first. So nobody else dared publish it afterwards, any other opinions. Because this was Tarbuck Campbell, and he said she was crap, therefore she was crap. And of course, there was a supper to celebrate his latest review. The supper was called The Johnsons. The great and the good came to the mansion, and of course, Tarbuck Campbell went along as well. He got to the mansion, he was called in by the Johnsons, and he made his way up to the dining room, and he was standing outside the dining room, and suddenly, he had a chill in his belly. I didn't know what it was, whether it was guilt or conscience or something. Suddenly he realised he was worried. And he thought, what's worrying when you realise? That he went in there, and Patricia Crooks was sitting there, all his power had gone because she would have given a damn and she could mock him. Or worse, he could go in and she wouldn't be there. But he could turn on him for being cruel to him. Poor Tarbuck Campbell standing there, and he puffed himself up and went, damn it, I'm Tarbuck Campbell, nobody would dare mock me. And he walked in to the dining room. And there sat in the dining room, with all the candles fluttering and all the food out there, was all the great and the good. And they all looked at Tarbuck Campbell, and there was silence. And he looked at them, and then suddenly all went, yeah! Woo! Brilliant review! And he looked, and your woman wasn't there at all, and he was relieved, and he realised none of the great and the good gave a damn about Patricia Crooks. All they were interested in was him and his reviews, and it was great. And he sat down and he started drinking, and they were all drinking, and some folk were quoting bits of the reviews, and it was a great night. He was eating food, he was getting fuller and fuller and fuller, and it was a great, wonderful night. But all the time, there was still that little tinkling of something wrong in him, something just slightly amiss. He would just drink more and eat more and chase it away. And halfway through the night, he looked round, he was a bit bloated, and he looked at the table, and on the table, one of the dishes there was a pasta dish, with a lovely red sauce, and there was raisins in the sauce as well. And he found himself focusing on this raisin, and the raisin was rolling down the pasta a little bit, and it stuck in the sauce, and rolled down a bit more, and stuck in the sauce, rolled a little bit more. And of course, Tarbuck was focusing this, and he was thinking to himself, that looks like an insect. It looks like some sort of beetle caught in something wet and red and hot. And he was absolutely shocked at this vision, and he took another drink, and he closed his eyes, and he got an even worse vision. This time, he could see, he was looking as if he was an insect, you know, through the little eyes they've got, and he could see the world around him was an insect, and he could see he was in a slaughterhouse, and he could see it was a cow over there, and the cow was being drawn over, and the cow was fighting and struggling, and they were bringing the cow over, and there was a slaughterman with the big gun with the bolt, and they brought the cow over, and they got the bolt to the cow's head, and poof! They put the bolt to the cow's head, the brains went, the legs collapsed, and the cow fell. Jesus! said Tarbuck, and woke himself up, took a drink, ate some food. Jesus, where did that come from? He thought, is my conscience that bad? And he drank some more, and he ate some more, and he managed to shake it off. Well, the night went on, and the night went on, he managed to drink more and drink more, and eventually he managed to calm down, and everybody was laughing and singing and partying and celebrating how it was. And the night went on, the night went on. And sure, 2 or 3 in the morning, by this time, everybody started to leave. One by one, everybody was going home. Until it was only the Johnsons and Tarbuck sitting in the dining room. And Tarbuck was sitting there, and the Johnsons, and he was very, very drunk now. And he said to him, Tarbuck, will we get you a taxi and get you home? He said, no, I'll walk home, fresh air will do me great, I'll walk home. And he said to him, Grand Tarbuck, we're just going to go and tidy things up now, we'll leave you alone in the dining room. And I left Tarbuck, and he was sitting in the dining room. He was smelling out all the last of the smells and the food and the perfumes, and seeing the last gutterings of the candles, and feeling quite well with himself. And suddenly, he got another vision. And he was at insect again, and he was looking out, and he could see the cow being dragged. All this time, the cow was making a noise, it was screaming in the voice of Patricia Crooks. Help! Stop! Don't! And he dragged the cow over, and they got the gun to the cow's head, and poof! The bolt went through the cow's head, its legs collapsed, and it fell over. Jesus! And he stood up, and he turned round, and he made to get to the front door, and he staggered out drunk, and he went through the wrong door. And he opened the door, and he found himself in a hallway. And he was shaking, and he was shivering, and he was thinking to himself, God, no, what's going on? He managed to calm down. It's okay, I'm Tarbuck Campbell. Nobody messes with me.